the top 8 EDI myths debunked. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain, and I welcome you to this special presentation from True Commerce. Quick reminder, there will be an audience question and answer session at the end of this presentation. Audience members are encouraged to submit their questions at any time during the presentation by clicking on that Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. So, electronic data interchange has been around for more than 50 years. It is now being used in all major industries, providing a set of messaging standards that govern the flow of electronic documents between companies. Many businesses think they have a good understanding and process for managing EDI, yet there are still a lot of misconceptions around how it can be effectively deployed. So today, we're going to set the record straight about the top 8 EDI myths, the myths that we hear from businesses. We'll dispel those myths and uncover the truth about how modern cloud-based EDI solutions can transform your supply chain with real-world examples. The agenda for today, here's how it's going to go. We're going to start out, as I said, with those top EDI myths. We're going to debunk those common EDI misconceptions. That will be followed by, as I indicated earlier, the question and answer session for the audience, and you can pose those questions, again, by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Brian Fournier is Director of Operations for WOW Sports and Big Mouth Inc. Brian has 10 years of experience in EDI across 4 companies, integrating with 4 instances of NetSuite and managing over 100 trading partners. Brian has worked with True Commerce, SBS, and standalone web EDI, and has expertise in middleware integrations like Celigo. Jeff Bicus is a mid-market account executive with True Commerce. Jeff has a decade of experience in B2B supply chain integrations. At True Commerce, he strives to drive growth by connecting mid-sized businesses with cutting-edge supply chain solutions, including EDI and omnichannel integration. And Shane Quinn is a mid-market sales executive at True Commerce. He builds relationships with businesses seeking to optimize their supply chains through EDI and integration. Shane thrives on understanding customer-specific challenges and collaborating to implement effective solutions. So, let's start out. Let's first hear from, we have a poll we're going to ask our audience to participate in first, to kind of get to know you a little bit. The question for all of you is the following. Are you currently using EDI today? Here are your choices. Yes, and we're happy with our process and technology. Yes, but we need to improve our process and technology. No, but we will be soon. And finally, not at this time. So I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to choose one of those. Just take one and we'll look at that and have a little comment about just the degree to which our audience is currently using EDI today. Again, it's been around for a long time. That doesn't mean that everybody's embracing it equally. So it's going to be very interesting to see what all of you have to say. So we're waiting now for the choices to come in. And here we are. Very interesting. Okay, so 33% said yes, and we're happy with our process and technology in EDI. 25% said yes, but we need to improve our process and technology. An equal 25% said no, but we will be soon. And finally, 17% said not at this time. Well, Shane, what do you think about those comments, about those results? What's your take on that?
Yeah, Bob, results definitely do not surprise me. Looks like there is a pretty diverse, set of answers there. With today's session, I think that, discussing some of these myths, a lot of this will correlate with really all levels of expertise, whether it is, those users that have been utilizing EDI or those that are just getting into EDI or have no experience at all.
Yeah. Good perspective. We're going to learn a lot more about it in the next hour or two based on that. So thank you very much for that. So right now, let's hear from Brian Fournier about his journey at EDI, with EDI at WOW Sports and Big Mouth.
Hey guys, just as a point of my journey, I came to WOW Sports from Big Mouth Inc., both consumer products brands. Big Mouth had just completed a switch from SPS to True Commerce, and WOW Sports was doing nothing but web-based EDI. They had about 20 trading partners and a lot of compliance challenges, several $100,000 in chargebacks every year. We got both companies up and running on a single transaction manager through TrueCommerce and a single instance of NetSuite, and we completed the migration of about 80 trading partners in about 4 months. So we spent substantial time at the beginning of the project identifying what sort of needs we'd have from a field perspective and ensuring that a lot of the high-level mapping was in place. Now we're running over 100 trading partners between both brands, and new partner setup and day-to-day management has been a breeze. EDI chargebacks have been nearly eliminated, and the late transaction penalties have gone to $0.
All right, thank you for that. I think now we're going to hear from Shane, a quick word about TrueCommerce. Shane?
Yeah, so TrueCommerce is, obviously a supply chain automation communication organization, specifically in the EDI realm. And TrueCommerce simplifies end-to-end supply chain management and empowers success by connecting businesses to a global trading partner network through a single integrated platform. This really, expands out to consolidation of communication channels, automation with ERP applications, and we do this by helping our customers digitalize key trading processes. We're going to help integrate to B2B trading partner relationships, whether those are customers, vendors, suppliers, third-party logistics, warehouses, really anyone within your supply chain scope. We provide standardized solutions, so working directly with ERP publishers for automation and integration certification. We also act proactively with various different trading partners through our managed services. So we ensure that you're always compliant with any type of mapping changes or adjustments that may come up along your journey in relationships with your customers. And all of this really ultimately leading to simplifying the complex world of, electronic exchange processes.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now let's launch into these 8 myths along with the corresponding reality. We'll be bringing up those slides, and we'll run through them one by one, and I'll be very interested to hear what you gentlemen have to say about them. So we're looking to see the first of those. Myth number 1, I don't have a choice in which EDI provider or providers I can work with. That is the myth. The reality? EDI standards allow for seamless data exchange between systems, regardless of the provider. You are not locked into the EDI provider recommended by your trading partner. So let's get some comment on that one.
Yeah, that's right. In my perspective or in my experience, a lot of times trading partners will say, hey, we work with SPS, or hey, we're working with Rhythm, and we want you to be working there too. The reality that we've found is that we are able to forward all of those transactions seamlessly to TrueCommerce, and we have one point of interface with our NetSuite business system. So while they may want to work with those providers specifically, there's always the opportunity to forward those transactions on to TrueCommerce and have a unified solution for your business.
Okay, good perspective on that. So
Yeah,
we've dispelled one of them. You want?
Yeah, I'll make another comment in my experience. Really, you have the freedom, just like an email, just like a cell phone carrier, whether you're choosing Gmail over Yahoo, Verizon over AT&T, you do have that power to choose whichever provider out in the space. To Brian's point, it might feel like you have to use a certain provider just due to your customers' method on who they've selected, but some providers might stand out from others that match your business processes, your integration goals, etc. But you do have that freedom to elect whichever provider to receive that information and then have that compliancy on the back end with communication to your customers.
Okay, thank you very much for dispelling that one. Let's turn to myth number 2. EDI is solely a compliance tool and doesn't add value to my business. Reality? By streamlining order processing, automating document exchange, and reducing manual entry, EDI helps businesses cut costs, improve accuracy, and scale operations. Comment?
Yeah, again, in my experience, we were able to cut out several $100,000 in chargebacks for late ASNs or inaccurate ASNs or inaccurate invoices. And by integrating with EDI, we were able to also reduce the workload of our team. our productivity has gone through the roof. We used to process around 25,000 individual transactions with about 5 people, and we've reduced that to nearly 0 with just somebody overseeing any exceptions that happen day to day.
Yeah, great comments there, and I'll piggyback off of that a little bit, Bob. Thanks for kind of giving your experience on that, Brian. You know, a lot of things that I see when speaking with my customers is, of course, when they are getting into various different new customer relationships, specifically in the retail space, compliance is obviously something that will come up. But outside of that, we're able to actively, give some additional insight into how EDI can, expand your business, for the better, for things such as consolidation of various different sales channels. Just kind of piggybacking off what Brian said, the automation into the ERPs. EDI is a very usable data that is easily integrated into various different ERP applications, which can ultimately lead to better visibility. Reducing the headcount of team members that are needed to process order to cash, for instance, for various different sales channels, really just driving down cost and overall, headcount resources needed to run your business itself.
I think that's an interesting corrective, because at first blush, EDI, when it was first introduced, maybe a lot of people still think this is what it is. It's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of confusing acronyms. It's basically just a way to send a document. It's a message formatting system, which of course it is. But the idea that it goes beyond the mere sending of messages to create this type of customer and user value, I think is a really important comment to make. So thank you very much, guys, for helping us to understand how EDI can extend the value beyond just what it appears to be. Okay, so myth number 3. I don't need to integrate EDI with my ERP system. Okay. The reality is the opposite. Integrated EDI creates a unified workflow, improves order accuracy, and gives your team real-time visibility into inventory, fulfillment, and customer status. Can't wait for your comment on that, especially the whole issue of the challenge of integration once we realize it has to happen. So what do we have to say on that one?
Yeah, I think if you want to increase headcount in the organization and more time manually processing as the business expands footprint, whether that be with customers or suppliers, is it beneficial for the organization to have multiple individuals managing various requirements and outside portals that often have costs associated to that, right? There's contract lengths and renewals, so having to manage that from more of a siloed system than having all of your sales channels, whether that be retail, e-commerce, marketplaces, in a centralized solution, can be a challenge in what I've seen in my experience.
Mm-hmm. And then also have a comment about the integration aspect, because that can be a scary thing, getting all these systems to play nice with each other. They don't exist in vacuums, for sure.
Yeah, the comment about visibility, I think that's huge. With having all of these orders and ASNs and invoices outside of your system, it's really hard to match up the data and get accurate real-time data for your financial team or for your leaders, and using that data to make better decisions. I mean, the faster and more accurate the data is, the better. And we found that integration is a must.
Okay. Yet another myth dispelled. All right, myth number 4. It takes months to set up trading partners with EDI. I've actually heard this before in the past, so let's get to the reality. On the contrary, with pre-configured trading partner maps and an experienced implementation team, you can accelerate onboarding to days instead of months. Guys, is that right?
Yeah, Bob, I can comment on that. When it comes to the pre-configured mapping, that is a huge benefit. We, here at True Commerce have a trading partner library of over 180,000 different, pre-established trade relationships on the network. So what that really means is we're not, establishing a new connection every time we have a customer that needs to connect with, for instance, a large retailer like Walmart. We can piggyback off of the bones that we already have in place. So that drastically reduces the time, instead of having to go through that mapping process every time there's a new customer looking to connect. The other side of the coin is, our implementation team is experienced in the sense that, they've gone through tons of different types of scenarios. Walmart's, testing scenarios may be different than somebody like Amazon. So, there's somebody there from our side every step of the way to guide you through those various different processes. It's not something you have to figure out on your own. and establish, communications with the various different partners. So really, helping drive that speed, bringing that down from weeks to days in a lot of scenarios there.
I would also, oh, good. Brian, did you
I
want
was going to say
in?
that the record that we have is 48 hours from getting a trading partner deployed to having it approved in production. Of course, you have to have some cooperation from your trading partner, but our record was 48 hours. I got a notice on a Wednesday and I had it running on Friday. So I mean, it can be that fast.
Wow. Okay. I would also hope that with 50 years under our belt of EDI, so up to this point, that maybe over the years it has become more familiar and easier to implement. It's not an alien thing for companies, even if they haven't been using it. So I would like to think that we've learned things along the way that accelerate the implementation aspect of it. But that sounds like indeed what is in fact the case. Okay, let's move on. Myth number 5. I can rely on my trading partner's EDI system to meet my needs. Well, the reality is letting a trading partner or third party manage your EDI can limit visibility, slow your cash flow, and restrict flexibility. When you manage your own EDI solution, you gain full control over your data, your compliance, and your operations. Guys, true, right?
Scenarios I've seen, oftentimes customers who host these various portals for suppliers often black box these portals, so they offer little to no visibility, right? So it's hard to be agile to unique customer requests, and if there are something unique based on your relationship that that portal or that individual hosting the portal is not aware of, oftentimes I see there's challenges with, do I make contact with my direct customer who's hosting the portal? Is there a third party in the mix that has to pick that up? Now I'm waiting for that to, have a ticket created, for that to be there's troubleshooting involved, right? So really just not as agile by having it hosted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to kind of give some insight into the scenarios I've seen, of course, that scenario Jeff had mentioned. Other scenarios are, we'll see some of our customers or potential customers have somebody like a third-party logistics warehouse that is fully managing the EDI on their behalf. Well, that's great because you are hands-off, but at the end of the day, there could be instances where they only have a small amount of trading partner connections that they can handle, or other scenarios where, they're not able to handle certain aspects. But ultimately, each organization still needs to track all of the order to cash processes. So getting that information into their ERP is still going to be a very important aspect that needs to happen. If you don't have access and direct control to the data, you could be waiting for that third party to get you that information, which you still may need to key into your backend business system. So I think, having that EDI solution at your doorstep there, you're in control, in the driver's seat, gives you better access to the data, better control of the relationships, and really just reduces any type of delay that can come up with somebody else running that for you.
Well, I mean, after all, message transmission and formatting and the like, it's a two-way street. So you've got to have responsibility, expertise at both ends in order to make this really work, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Great. Okay. Here we are at myth number 6. EDI is too complex to set up and manage ourselves. Well, that follows on what we just said about the importance of actually doing it. Is it, in fact, too complex to set up and manage? Well, the reality is the opposite. Letting a trading partner or third party manage your EDI can limit visibility, slow your cash flow, and restrict flexibility. When you manage your own EDI solution, you gain full control over your data, compliance, and operations. I'm starting to see a theme here, guys. So let's expand on this one a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. There's, with learning anything or introducing anything new to your business, there's going to be a learning curve. However, once you have understanding of how the transactions flow, both to the EDI partner that you're working with and to your business system, once you have a basic understanding of how those things flow, then the pre-built maps, the support that the True Commerce team can give is all very easy to, first of all, learn for yourselves, but also to pass down to your staff. We have 2 individuals working on this now. I used to be taking care of it solely, but now we have 2 individuals who manage just exceptions only. And it's actually quite nice to have them just be freed up for their time to just manage those exceptions. So Again, at the beginning, it's a little scary, but at the end, it's very easy and very logical to put forth and execute within your company.
Mm.
Yeah, great points there, Brian. I think that, Bob, where I see this come up a lot is, again, I mentioned this earlier on, customers that they're new to EDI. It's a new experience, as Brian had mentioned, and that can be scary, of course. But the nice thing about working with somebody like True Commerce is the fact that we offer the managed service. What that means is we're taking care of all the technical aspects, that being the mapping directly to the trading partners, any type of updates. As I mentioned earlier on, we're going to be working, proactively with those trading partners to make sure you're always compliant. Those pre-built certified ERP integrations, that falls, those are built, under the True Commerce umbrella as well, really making us a one-stop shop for any technical aspect of the EDI solution. And the management itself, as Brian alluded to, really comes down to essentially management by exception, because of course we know some things, there are exceptions in certain cases. And then of course, when we think about those ERP integrations, there is a natural and normal flow within the ERP for a process like an order to cash. That is really the main piece you're managing, the items that you have to do no matter what to track your order to cash. And we're able to just grab the data as you're going through those ERP processes and get it back out the door so that you're in compliance and getting the data to the partners. So yes, it can definitely be, a little bit scary in the beginning. But as Brian mentioned, once you get ramped up, once you start utilizing the solution and leveraging the resources that we provide, it really is just, another day in your ERP.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, it's been around so long, you would think it would get easier, but at the same time, maybe there might be this image out there that the complexity is a disincentive to adopt it and just move on to something like APIs, application programming interfaces, not worry about EDI, thinking you're going to jump over it. But in fact, it's so prevalent and so important to have that I think that would be a misconception, that you need to not be afraid of these complexities, especially with the help of an established partner to help you get through that maze. All right. We're up to myth number 7. Migrating to a new EDI provider is complicated, time-consuming, and risky. Sounds good, except the reality is this. With the right partner, it doesn't have to be. You can achieve seamless EDI migrations with proven processes that ensure minimal downtime and disruption. I'd be interested in hearing more about that, about how you avoid the downtime and disruption, because that is obviously going to be a fear of people embracing something that they're not familiar with.
Change can be scary. I think really having a strategic plan and trust with full transparency from the start to the finish is super important, right? And just being fully upfront with scope of work, right? Sharing out the documents that would be involved in the integration to match your customer's requirements or the business process within your main source of truth, which is your ERP. But really, I think leveraging over 20 years experience with our onboarding methodology, but also working as a team throughout the project, bringing in other resources from professional service when we see fit, and helping that client just have that comfort, right? That we have the maps, we have the connections, and we can all have achievable goals and plans throughout the project that are documented, right? So you're not in the dark, hey, what's happening this week, what's happening this day, etc. Just full transparency, which then provides confidence as you're working through that implementation, right?
Yeah. Well,
that's in my experience on this is, we migrated 20 partners for WOW Sports from SPS over to True Commerce, and we did that so that we could have both the Big Mouth brand and the WOW Sports brand both working through True Commerce. And our experience was like, we had a list of the 20 trading partners that we wanted to do. For each different trading partner, we were provided with the clear documentation as to this is what you need to do, this is who you need to contact, this is who's going to help you. We had weekly meetings. So it was actually comforting to know that there was somebody there that had the expertise that we needed, that had the sense of urgency that we both shared in getting that done. And at the end of the day, helping us get these trading partners to the finish line in a way that avoided any compliance chargebacks or any fees associated with not doing the job properly up front. So my experience was like that. And of course, it is a scary thing to take on such a big challenge. But my experience is that it worked really smoothly and really well.
Were you in fact a little nervous at the outset there, Brian, before you undertook it?
I love EDI, so I was really excited.
I mean,
No, but of course,
you were no stranger to EDI at that
no,
point
but
anyway.
it's daunting. No matter when you do it or what you look at, it for sure is it's a big business decision because you have to take important resources off of X, Y, and Z and put them onto the project. But you have to know at the end of the day, you're going to get all of that productivity and all of that time back, and potentially all that cash too, because you're not having the errors and the issues, and your people are freed up to do other things that are adding value to the business.
Yeah, but you're the guy in the organization who's going to say, chill out. This is going to work.
It's going to work. It's going to be
you
fine.
You already knew what you were up for, and especially you had True Commerce in your corner too, so that really helped.
For sure.
All right. Here's myth number 8. I can't consolidate EDI providers. I must use multiple to work with all of my trading partners. I assume that's I use multiple providers to work with all of my trading partners. But no, reality, consolidating allows organizations to centralize sales channels and to optimize automated workflows with unique requirements. Consolidation, is that a difficult thing to do? I mean, it sounds necessary, but what's involved?
So I'll kick this one off again. I think that it's necessary. I believe that I started using a password manager when I started logging into all these different portals that were doing our different EDI things. I have web portal for this customer, web portal for that customer, different web portal for this. So I had a lot of different web portals, and through the process, you start to need to consolidate into one singular source. And I think I touched on this at the opening, but just having people go into all these different portals and remembering, did I check this one today? Did I check that one today? Did I send this ASN? Did I send this invoice? It becomes unscalable. So at some point in time, you have to centralize. You have to get everything flowing into one sort of hub where it can then be transmitted to your system. And then you can, as the other guys have mentioned, worry about the order to cash processes within your business system. But I think that centralizing it and getting it to one singular point is critical for any company that's utilizing EDI.
Yeah, and great points there, Brian. I think that the first part of this myth, the I can't consolidate EDI providers, kind of stems back to that first myth that Brian and Jeff did discuss, in the sense that there's that misconception that you are limited to which EDI providers you can utilize for certain trading partners, which just really isn't the case. As Jeff had mentioned, you can look at it like a cell phone relationship or email. As long as both sides of the relationship have that EDI capability, you can use whoever you want in that instance. So keeping that in mind, I think that's definitely important to get out to those companies that think they have to stay where they're at. And sometimes whenever we have conversations, we have to really uncover that, in the sense that they're only giving us the names of these new retailers. Come to find, they're actually doing portal EDI with others, but didn't know that they could actually make that change. So I think that's definitely a piece that we try to make sure we're uncovering is there added benefit to the consolidation? Are there other channels? Because at the end of the day, with a solution like ours, there can be different formats, there can be different requirements. You want everything in one consolidated place through one integration, because it can also get really costly if you're paying a ton of other providers to try and do the same thing that you can do with one.
Words like centralization, concentration, integration, consolidation, those are good words. I mean, they imply it's a good thing to do, but it's not necessarily easy if you don't know the right way to go about it. But thank you for helping to clarify that for sure. It's good to know. So I said they were going to talk about 8 big myths, but we had a bonus myth here. Myth number 9. And that is APIs, application programming interfaces, are replacing EDI. I referred to that earlier. Why don't we just jump right over EDI and get right over to APIs? Well, the reality is APIs and EDI serve different purposes. APIs are good for real-time application-to-application communication, but EDI remains the gold standard for standardized, secure, and scalable B2B document exchange. Who would like to expand on that? Because that's a good point to make.
I'll go first and say from the customer perspective, or from the vendor perspective for those customers, they pretty much everybody offers both. You can do API or you can do EDI. My experience is that the APIs are like mentioned here are more real time, but it seems like every API connection is different whereas every EDI connection seems to be a bit more standardized, and it's a lot easier for us to integrate. So we've leaned towards EDI where the customers offer both solutions, and where they only offer API, then we've figured out how to do it. But my experience is that it just seems like each one of those is a different setup, and it takes a lot longer to get up to speed and to make sure that you're error free than it does when you're doing EDI.
Would
Shane,
you say,
what do you
Brian?
tell? Go ahead,
oh,
Jeff. Jeff.
Brian, would you just say a little more involvement from a development standpoint with API?
Absolutely. And, to the point where, I didn't know what JSON was, or I didn't know what an XML was, but I needed to learn some of that so that I could understand and troubleshoot where the problems were coming from. With the EDI, it seems like it's very clear. You have a partner token, you have a field that it's going to. It's very clear, like a one-to-one mapping. Whereas, partner A might say, hey, I'm naming this field this, and partner B might say, I'm naming that same field that. And then you have to figure out how do those two things go to the same field within your ERP system. And it just becomes a little bit more cumbersome to manage and set up and get through at the beginning.
Yeah.
Shane, what do you tell customers when they say, why don't I just jump right ahead to APIs and forget about all this EDI stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does depend on, what is offered, as Brian did mention there. But, at the end of the day, as mentioned, EDI is the gold standard for a lot of these retail relationships. There are a few that are making the jump, but a majority of them are very heavily ingrained in EDI, and that's not, a change that's going to be they're not going to be having a change to API anytime soon. So, a lot of time conversations are customers, they say we want to do API because they have experience with that for their own internal solution integrations. But at the end of the day, some of these retailers, you're going to have to go with whatever specifications and requirements they do have on that front.
Yeah. I'll make one last comment, Bob. I think what I've seen in my experience, and especially in kind of post-COVID, is a lot of e-commerce marketplace selling, right? They're familiar with API, and now they're expanding to more brick and mortar B2B relationships, right? And they're familiar with API, but now they're stepping into having to have compliance around EDI. So EDI, API, they have their place. And to Brian's point, more of that real-time communication could be in an e-commerce relationship or a marketplace relationship, right? But I think gold standard still in B2B communication is EDI.
Good way to put it. EDI is not only still relevant, it is all the more important to have in your operation these days, even after 50 years, with the supposed promise of other things replacing it. Doesn't sound like it's going to happen anytime soon. So thanks very much. So I think we've managed to dispel 8+1 important myths. Shane, you introduced us to True Commerce earlier. I just wondered if you could just sort of reiterate very quickly why True Commerce, if you're considering jumping into EDI or consolidating EDI or improving your EDI efforts. Where do you guys fit into the picture for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, some of the answers to the myths that we did provide can help kind of clarify the points that I did make earlier on here. But when it comes down to an EDI solution provider, True Commerce's managed services is really, something that our customers appreciate. The fact that, they don't have to be any type of technical expert to, successfully utilize an EDI solution. We're a one-stop shop for both the EDI, data and connection to the partners, as well as the ERP integrations. So it makes, things a lot more seamless for our customers, but we can also open things up and allow our customers to be a little bit more hands-on. That's, one of the big market differentiators that we have is fully managed is there, but some of our customers, they do want to be a little bit more hands-on, nitty-gritty with the actual integration itself. And we have that option as well. So it really is, support on a spectrum. In the sense that however you are more comfortable utilizing our solution, there's options for that.
Well, thank you for that. So, real world use cases really tell the story the best, I think. And so Jeff is going to share with us here a customer spotlight for True Commerce. So Jeff, why don't you tell us what you have for us today?
Yeah. So I want to quickly highlight a customer success story, Coterie Baby. I'm a new father, so anytime I see baby related products, I can take that back to my wife. So Coterie Baby crafts high performance, sustainable baby care products. They were founded in 2019. Think diapers, wipes, disposable baby swimwear, etc. Okay. Coterie was not new to EDI. They were operating on hybrid systems, that being Portal. They had limitations around integration and not a whole lot of automation capabilities. Okay. So due to the significant growth within retail, e-commerce, various marketplaces that they were hosted on, Coterie was looking to seamlessly handle high volumes, that being their transactional volumes across these various channels. With making the switch, they were looking for a partner to provide greater visibility, stronger control of their environment, but not overly complicated. So not heavily, developer focused. They wanted to be able to learn the solution and then, kind of push that along to the other individuals within the team, and also strong support. So the solution recommendation that made sense was the True Commerce Mapping Manager. With our expertise and integration to NetSuite, by making the switch, Coterie was able to manage all of their sales channels through one single source. It allowed them to scale seamlessly. So they handled high volumes, their subscription services that they have, and those were all able to handle through customization with the ERP and to meet their specific business process requirements. Ultimately, this gave Coterie the flexibility to be agile to unique customer requests, and they had that confidence that they had that support model in case they couldn't handle anything, that they could reach out and that could be addressed in a timely manner. Okay. And I just wanted to highlight this. I won't read through the quote, but Rajiv actually had used True Commerce in a past life, actually with two organizations. With Coterie, he was tasked within the first month to take a look at their various supply chain solutions, their EDI solutions, and he made that switch over. That was really his top priority project in that first month. He knew that, and the trust that True Commerce had provided in his past two organizations. So he had contacted the team right away, and they were able to implement this quickly and get off the solution that they were running on.
Well, thank you very much
All
for
right.
that, Jeff.
Yeah.
So at this point, I would like to bring the audience in with some questions. Some audiences have already submitted some, but you continue to submit those questions by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we can, time permitting. So let's start with this one. Question is, my EDI costs are exorbitant. How can I reduce my costs for hosted AS2, that is applicability statement 2, and VAN, that is value added network? How can I reduce those costs? Jeff?
Yeah, I think taking a look at a managed service that brings not just that encompasses your network data, your transactional data, but also offers a full managed package, whether that be integration of documents within your business system and provides that support and maintenance model, is able to reduce some of those costs. Oftentimes, in my experience, you're outsourcing to an AS2 or a VAN, a value-added network. You're purchasing software, right? That their expertise is getting that data within the ERP. And then who supports that, right? So there's different costs. There's multiple costs involved in that model. Whereas moving to a managed service, you can feel more comfortable on having operational costs that aren't exorbitant or fluctuating, right? I don't know, Shane, if you or Brian have anything to comment on that, but that's what I've seen by trying to get some of those network level costs down.
Yeah, and I think that for somebody such as True Commerce and our pricing model, being a subscription based model, the connectivity method is not going to change any approach in how we connect with the trading partners. As you can imagine, I mentioned this earlier on, 180,000 different trade relationships on the network. There's a mix of the two that were mentioned here, the VAN and AS2. We also see SFTP. We see API connections that are starting to come up. So from that perspective, along with all of these managed services, all of this is bundled up into one standardized cost that you get a lot more bang for your buck because the support is included there. All the technical resources, the integration. So I think, you're exactly right, Jeff. Looking for somebody that provides a managed service such as us can definitely help drive down some of those costs.
Yeah, and from sorry, just quickly, like from our perspective, the amount of data that we use, there are different levels, and we have a very seasonal business. So we are also able to work with TrueCommerce on our pricing plan for the different levels of transactions that we do throughout the year. And I think that it's, again, just matching the best way to do it is to just match your transactions with your need. If you're paying a flat rate and you're not using it, or you're paying something that's too high, then I think that I think that it's best to match your activity with your payments.
Okay, thank you. This questioner says we have a very lean IT team. How much of the EDI process do we actually have to manage ourselves?
Yeah, I'll take this one. I think really with a managed service offering, you want to lean on those experts, right? So we provide expertise around not just trading partner communication, so your relationships, making sure that we're validating and testing information and making sure that you're compliant, but also providing those integration resources that have that expertise and that experience. However, we do need your time to validate your data and your business process within the ERP. Okay. So we need your assistance as we're going through testing and certification, right? And we're building out those integrations. We do, however, just need to lean on your team because you know your overall data within the ERP and your business process day to day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and expanding upon that after you are live with those various different connections, as we mentioned earlier on, really the main 2 points are, and Brian, I apologize if I jumped you there, that you may kind of be looking to mention this as well, but the management by exception, once the solution's up and running, everything will flow seamlessly, except for, there's obviously scenarios where there's exceptions. And then, of course, managing your ERP functions. As Jeff mentioned, where your data's at because you're in your ERP on a daily basis and you're, working through, for instance, an order to cash process. That's really the goal. And, the idea is we're going to get the data in and out of your ERP in a way that is really your main function is managing your own ERP. That's really it.
Yeah, and from a lean IT perspective, I've been in a couple different companies where it's EDI has fallen under IT, or EDI has fallen under finance, or EDI has fallen under operations. And to be honest with you, I think that it's worked best when it was under finance or operations because you have the urgency from the finance team to reduce compliance chargebacks, or you have the operations team asking for data accuracy all the time. So I don't think that having a strong IT team is like a prerequisite to having a good EDI process. I think you just need to understand, the ins and the outs, and you can make it work without a strong IT team.
We talked earlier about integration. Here's a question about it. When is the right time to integrate EDI with my ERP? Shane?
Yeah, I'll kick that one off. I think that it really does depend, on your business. There's different scenarios that come up that, will highlight, hey, this is the time to integrate. But, in my experience, I've seen some of my customers that really have one EDI trading partner, not a whole lot of order volume, but they want to integrate because they still are understanding the fact that we're humans. And if we have to bounce back and forth between systems, we can make mistakes, and those mistakes can be costly. Certain retailers are going to send you chargebacks. So, I think that's one thing. Another thing is if you do have a lot of different sales channels, a lot of different employees managing said sales channels, in a manual format, that opens the door up for, potentially greater errors on a larger scale. So consolidating sales channels down to one, provider that can then push that into the ERP so that maybe you can reduce the headcount of sales channel management from 3 to 1. I think that those are some of the main key areas are really just, reducing the errors and, trying to reduce cost in the fashion of, the error handling as well as the headcount involved with some of those sales channels.
Well, again, integration is a good thing if you can do it, if you can pull it off, and especially with your ERP, you definitely want that to be playing nice with all the systems in your organization, not just your EDI initiative. Okay, this question is saying, I've used multiple EDI portals before. What are the hidden costs or the risks of sticking with trading partner provided portals instead of consolidating under one system? Here again, we're talking about the issue of consolidation. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I think hidden costs would be operationally headcount and having resources that are managing those various portals. And to Shane's point, we're all human. We could fat finger something, which then, in turn could have a compliancy charge or an EDI charge back. Some of the other hidden fees, I think, if you're operating on each portal, usually there's subscription services for those portals, whether that be an annual subscription or longer term subscription. So it's hard as an organization if you are expanding your footprint, you're managing 5+ portals or however many portals, how are you keeping up with the subscriptions, right? How are you keeping up with any changes to requirements within those portals, which it could obviously have cost implications as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think about it in terms of like headcount, right? Like that, like if you need more headcount to manage more portals, then I think that that's for at least for our organization, we want to make sure that we're getting the best efficiency that we can out of our folks. And if we have to carry an extra headcount because we're managing a portal manually, that's going to be high priority to be looked at to figure out how we can automate it.
Okay. There's another kind of question of timing. When do we know if EDI is right for us?
Yeah, so I can kick that off. I hear this a lot, like I said, for customers that are brand new to EDI. Once you get into the retail space and you start expanding into the retail space specifically, there is almost a guarantee at some point somebody is going to say, hey, EDI is required to do relation or to have a business relationship with us. So I think that anybody that's going to be selling product into, large distribution, large retail, you want to have that, in the back of your mind that this is going to be something that we do need to accomplish at some point. And then the other sides are really going back to the points that we've been kind of talking about throughout the session here, the consolidation, the automation. If your team's struggling with communications throughout, really anywhere in the supply chain, you're doing things manually, things are delayed because of those manual processes or those tons of errors. EDI is a great way to try to automate a lot of those processes, not just on the customer facing side. I think we mentioned this earlier, but different areas of the supply chain, like the third party logistics warehouses and your supplier community. These are all things that can be encompassed with EDI exchanges.
Okay, thanks. Question wants to know any concerns you might have about the batch processing nature of EDI versus the need for real-time messaging. Brian, do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, actually, and I think ironically, it allows me to highlight one of my favorite things about the TrueCommerce Transaction Manager, which is a scheduler, right? So one of the things that you can do with TrueCommerce is schedule or batch these things. And what we've found with our 3PLs is that they're not able to process real-time orders. And so when we are batching orders every 30 minutes or every hour, that seems to be near real time enough, and all of that's handled through the scheduler, that's near real time enough that they can keep up with our order flow and then process back to us their 945s, which are the warehouse fulfillments. So we think that it's not a barrier. And even with some of our websites where we do have API connections, we went from real time to batch to just allow the system to keep up with some of those transactions and not making the call all the time to our NetSuite.
Okay, thanks very much for that. So, unfortunately, I have to be the bearer of bad news for this fascinating discussion. That is that we are just about out of time. And we do, in fact, have time for one final question. I'm going to pose it to all of you. Here it is. When is the right time to evaluate additional communication capabilities across my entire supply chain? Jeff, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think as your footprint is expanding, you're taking on more customers with unique requirements, which takes up more time, resources, headcount. It might be a good time to evaluate automation and integration for your business systems.
Brian, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm very close to right there with you. Once you have one person that's working on EDI portals, whatever, like all day long, then you have more than enough reason to start investigating an integration with EDI.
And Shane, last word to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, anytime you're struggling with communications to really anyone in your supply chain, customers, suppliers, wholesale partners, third-party logistics warehouses, it may be time to kind of look and see if there's more automated ways because automation is the way.
Well, 50 years and counting, EDI might be in middle age, but it's still going strong as far as I can see, based on what you guys have told us today, helping us to dispel actually 9 myths about EDI and understand just where the state of the art is today and how important it is to have the right partner in place to help you on your EDI journey. Thank you very much to all of you, Brian and Shane and Jeff. Really appreciate your time there. We do have an asset for our audience. It is an EDI buyer's guide with including a free EDI provider evaluation checklist. There is a QR code you can snap a picture of, but if you're unable to do so in the last few seconds of this webinar, don't worry about it. This will be sent to all attendees of the session. So once again, thank you so much. Here is some contact information for True Commerce. And we do thank True Commerce for sponsoring this and our great speakers and our audience as well for your fantastic questions. So everybody, thanks again and have a great day.